As I'm sure you have all heard by now, former IGN editor Filip Miucin was recently fired from the news outlet for plagiarizing someone else's review. More specifically, he copied the sentence by sentence, paragraph by paragraph, and overall review structure of YouTuber Boomstick Gaming's review of Dead Cells, and the evidence is incontrovertible. Since then, IGN has removed Filip's review, issued an apology to all afflicted parties, stayed in touch with the community to answer any pressing questions, and completely re-reviewed the game through another editor. Overall, I would say IGN has handled the situation pretty well, and Boomstick Gaming himself has been pretty cool and level-headed about all this, despite having every reason to be pissed. Now, one party who we hadn't heard from was Filip himself, that is until today, August 11th, 2018, when Filip published a video on his YouTube channel to respond to his present circumstances. You would think that given how clear and irrefutable the evidence against them is, he'd own up to his mistakes and issue a simple, genuine apology, but nope, let's go ahead and take a look at his video and break it down, starting with this. Ah yes, the classic forced dramatic sigh one does at the beginning of a video to insincerely express distress. Anyway, on to more pressing matters.
I'm not really sure where to start, because there's a lot that I need to say. But if you're watching this video, then you probably already heard about the plagiarism allegations, and now you're waiting for my side of the story. So here it is.
Okay, so two things. One, notice how he calls it plagiarism allegations, as if to say that these are just claims rather than something that actually happened. And two, before we go through the rest of this video, do keep in mind that Filip specifically said that we're going to hear his side of the story. I'll get back to this later. Anyway, with that out of the way, let's continue.
I take complete ownership over what happened with the Dead Cells review. There were a lot of circumstances surrounding it, but at the end of the day, I was the editorial lead on it, so if anything, that makes it my responsibility.
So he says he takes responsibility, but instead of just saying he made a mistake, he insists that there were many circumstances surrounding what happened, once again indicating that he on some level does think he's a victim in all this. This is even more evident in this next bit.
My review process isn't really that different from other reviewers that I've met while working as a professional in the games media industry. And the formula stays the same for whatever product I'm reviewing. I do as much research as I can about it, whether it's a game, a product, or an event. I try to look at all resources that I have available to me before I start formulating my own critical opinions so that I can offer the most cohesive possible review. The bottom line is that what happened with the Dead Cells review was not at all intentional.
First things first, I'd like to note how Filip implies that his review process isn't that different from other reviewers, explaining how he does research by looking at all resources available to him before formulating his own opinions. It's sort of low-key implication that he looks at other reviews before doing his own, claiming this is what the game review process is like for everyone. Yeah, this couldn't be further from the truth. If you're using other people's reviews to inform your own, then it's not really your review now, is it? But most egregious of all is the claim that what happened with the Dead Cells review was, quote, not at all intentional. I'd like to once again direct you to the transcript Boomstick Gaming put together comparing his review to Filip's. I've seen a few people try to defend this as paraphrasing rather than plagiarizing, but looking at the text side by side, it couldn't be any more obvious that Filip pulled the copy homework change a few words around high school maneuver. Not only are the sentence and paragraph structures similar, if you look at the timestamps on both reviews, you will notice that Filip's review as a whole is structured identically as well. Apparently, all of this was somehow an accident. Apparently, the laws of probability went haywire. The stars aligned in weird ways, and Filip just happened to write a review that's near identical to one that was posted 2 weeks prior. The fact that Filip actually has the audacity to say that what he did was not at all intentional is enough to completely delegitimize his so-called apology. Oh, but it gets much worse. After taking some time to apologize to IGN, to talk about the talent there and the friends he made, and to express his utmost respect to the staff and crew there, asking his audience to refrain from swarming them with undeserved negative attention. After apologizing to Dead Cells developer Motion Twin for getting them involved in all this, Filip eventually addressed Boomstick Gaming directly, and here's what he had to say.
As for Boomstick, I have nothing but the best wishes for him, and I hope that his wave of success lasts a long time. A lot of you watching this video might not know my story, but I also started out as a YouTuber, so I completely understand what it's like being a small YouTuber trying to make a name for yourself. I mean, Boomstick, just keep doing what you're doing, man. It looks like you have a great thing going, and I've got nothing but respect for you.
Notice how there wasn't a single time when he apologized to Boomstick Gaming or acknowledged that he copied his work. Filip talks about how he respects Boomstick Gaming, patronizingly encourages him to keep doing what he's doing, says he understands what it's like to be in the position of being a small YouTuber, and yet not once does he own up to what he did. He sort of skirts around the issue and half-asses his address to the one entity he needed to directly apologize to the most. As if he hadn't already dug himself in a deep enough hole by now, he proceeded with this tirade.
I was lucky enough to get noticed on IGN through my YouTube channel, which, if in case you're wondering, is in fact all of my own original work. So you can keep looking, Kotaku, and please let me know if you find anything. Which, by the way, their news editor, Jason Schreier, tried to imply that my FIFA 18 review was also inauthentic by claiming that I copied it from Nintendo Life, and that's just so not the case. I mean, maybe he was implying that if you have similarly opinionated reviews, then you're just plagiarizing, or maybe he's just trying to get as many clicks off of my name right now as possible, or maybe he just likes kicking people when they're down. I don't know. I mean, check it out for yourselves and you be the judge.
For those who don't know what Filip is talking about, in Jason Schreier's Kotaku article reporting this story, it was pointed out that Filip's review of Dead Cells wasn't his first rodeo with plagiarism. It was pointed out by a tipster that there were also striking similarities between Nintendo Life's review of FIFA 18 for Switch, posted on September 29th, 2017, and Filip's video review published on his YouTube channel 2 days later on October 1st, 2017. Ample evidence was provided through a side-by-side transcription of the two reviews, and if you pause this video and take the time to read what's presented, you will agree that they are incontrovertibly identical with the exception of some readjusted diction. On top of all that, Jason responded to Filip's insinuations and accepted his challenge to find plagiarized content on his channel by highlighting another instance in which Filip copied someone else's review in a follow-up article, where segments of Engadget's review of Metroid Samus Returns, posted on September 8th, 2017, was transcribed side-by-side with segments of Filip's video review of the game published on his channel 5 days later on September 13th, 2017. Again, if you pause the video and read through this, you will agree that the parallels are undeniable. And yet, despite all this, Filip has the audacity to not only deny allegations of plagiarism, claiming that it's a matter of similarly opinionated reviews, he also tries to play the victim by insisting that Kotaku is trying to kick him while he's down, that they're only doing this to get clicks off of his name. Have you considered the possibility, Filip, that maybe outlets are covering this story because it is worth talking about given the gravity of the situation? Do you actually understand how serious plagiarism is in the realm of journalism, especially when it happens under the umbrella of such a large organization as IGN? Do you understand how irreparably journalistic entities can be damaged by this kind of malpractice, and why this needs to be talked about when it happens? Also, while we're on the topic of trying to get clicks, as Filip put it, it was noted by ex-IGN employee Lily Zaldivar that Filip actually monetized his so-called apology video, stating the following: "Filip Miucin, I'm gonna call you out. You monetized your video. You fucked up, and yet you didn't fully say you plagiarized. You proceeded to attack others and tell them that they did this for clicks, for the views. You said people check reviews before writing their own? Bullshit. I'm pissed because as someone who was there by your side at IGN, who loves to write about Nintendo stuff too, I am mad. I'm mad as a Nintendo fan, writer, and podcaster myself. Stop digging a hole for yourself and admit your fault and de-fucking monetize your video." So yeah, Filip, go right ahead and talk about others wanting to get clicks off of your name when you yourself clearly knew the kind of attention your video would garner and consciously decided to monetize it. Also responding to Filip's refusal to admit plagiarism was Chris Scullion, who wrote the Nintendo Life review that Filip copied, stating the following: "I can't believe you're actually suggesting that you didn't plagiarize my FIFA 18 review for Nintendo Life, and claiming that plagiarizing the Dead Cells review wasn't intentional. You have completely failed to accept and understand what you've done." Couldn't agree more with Chris there. Anyway, Filip continued.
But one thing that I do know is that it's not very fun being the target of a gigantic lynch mob who wants nothing more than to feed into your destruction.
One thing that I know, Filip, is that it's not very fun being the target of a plagiarizing nincompoop who wants to take advantage of other people's hard work and pass it off as their own. Just saying. Filip then talked about how he has lately been the target of hate and threats, particularly noting how some people looked up his family members to harass them, expressing that this isn't okay and asking everyone to leave his family members out of it. That's probably the only thing about this whole video that's agreeable. Yes, Filip did a really shitty thing, but that doesn't warrant threats, and that especially doesn't warrant people attacking his family members who had nothing to do with what Filip did. For those out there who have harassed or intend to harass Filip and his family, please don't be an asshole and take the high road. I will say this though, with how Filip is trying to play the victim here when he was 100% in the wrong, with how he's making empty apologies, refusing to admit his mistakes, accusing those reporting on this story for wanting to get clicks off of his name, or trying to make this whole situation about him. He's made it impossible for anyone to sympathize with his situation. I wouldn't want to be in his shoes, don't get me wrong, but he's not really doing himself any favors. Filip brought all of this on himself, plain and simple, and he's in no position to be accusing anyone of anything, getting up on his high horse, or trying to garner sympathy when he himself hasn't taken any tangible actions to show he's genuinely taking responsibility. Moving on, Filip thanked those who have reached out to him in support during these trying times, expressed that he doesn't want to stop making videos because he loves what he does, and that he wants to prove he can do better, insisted he takes full responsibility for what happened with the Dead Cells review, acknowledged he'll have a lot of work to do to earn trust and goodwill back, and touted how he didn't start making videos because he wants to make money, but because he genuinely loves video games and wanted to share his passion and inspire others. All before finally ending this sad excuse of an apology or acknowledgement of mistakes. You've also gotta love how this video ends as fakely dramatic as it started, with him putting on this little act of walking away from his recording studio in dramatic fashion. This gesture is pretty much this entire video in a nutshell, completely dramatized and insincere, and anyone with a shred of common sense and decency will see right through it. We are already seeing the likes of IGN executive editor of reviews Dan Stapleton tweet, quote, "I haven't seen an apology this poorly received since Kevin Spacey," and PC editor at IGN Tom Marks tweet, quote, "Just to be abundantly clear, plagiarism isn't a mistake, it's a choice." Suffice to say that all across the board, Filip's so-called apology didn't go so well for him, with reaction being negative enough that Filip actually removed the apology video a few hours after it went up. And while it is a shame that this will all likely culminate in further hate, threats, and harassment being instigated, the one with the shovel in hand here is Filip, who won't stop digging. You can claim you're sorry or that you take complete ownership and responsibility all you want, Filip, but actions speak louder than words, and there is not a single thing you've done that speaks to the sincerity of your words. And as long as you continue to deny multiple accounts of clear-cut plagiarism, as long as you refuse to admit your mistakes, people will never be able to trust you or take you seriously moving forward. Now, remember how at the beginning of the video I told you to keep in mind how Filip said he was going to tell his side of the story?
And now you're waiting for my side of the story. So, here it is.
Well, notice how not a single thing he said provided any real insight into what transpired behind the scenes from his perspective that made him decide to plagiarize his Dead Cells review. He insincerely apologized, he played the victim, he claimed this was all somehow unintentional, and he called out other outlets for presenting factual information about his misdeeds, but not once does he actually give his side of the story. If you ask me, that's because he doesn't have any real explanations or excuses beyond that he got lazy and that it was easier for him to copy someone else's review and pass it off as his own. But see, that's exactly what Filip has to admit and apologize for before anyone can begin forgiving and trusting him again as a journalist. Look, I'm not against the idea of giving Filip a second chance. I'm all for Filip wanting to learn and become a better person, but such a process cannot begin unless he shows he fully understands where he went wrong, something he outright stubbornly refuses to do. Don't just say you take responsibility, Filip, actually start taking responsibility, and that begins with a clear-cut confession. Otherwise, don't be surprised that people are giving you shit, and don't be surprised if people never take you seriously as a game journalist or critic ever again. especially after such an insultingly half-assed and hollow apology. These are just one man's thoughts and opinions anyway. I'd love to hear what your take is on Filip's response video in the comments below. With that, I would like to end this news update. Thank you for tuning in. If you enjoy my content and would like to support this channel directly, consider donating on Patreon. And to be further updated on all things gaming news, reviews, and discussions, stay tuned right here on Yong Yeah. I'll see you guys next time. Yong out. Shit, wrong side. Exits that way.